What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League, a single player version of this game. In what world do you envision seeing that? We'll talk about that in this video. We'll highlight a few things. I'll do some comparisons with Arkham, and we'll just talk a little bit about the perception this game has and the possibilities that could have ensued if, say, this game came out as a single player title and possibly, did some things that I think would have been unique enough to make the game stand out, but at the same time have the immediate appeal to fans and not need to, be delayed and go back into hiding, for almost a whole year. Now, what would it have taken to make a single player version of this game? Number one, the leadership at Warner Brothers would have probably been in a position to trust, the creators of the Arkham games with full creative freedom. I doubt that this game was Stephen Hill and Jamie Walker's vision. I don't think this is the direction they wanted to go, but that's just an opinion. I can't read their minds. There's no official statement saying anything, but their actions, to me, they speak a specific tone. And what actions, you might ask? The actions are very simple. They're leaving Rocksteady, or they already have left Rocksteady, and the announcement was made, I think, sometime before we got to see, this particular gameplay. It was very interesting that we got that, and then there was a state of play. And at the end of the day, even at the state of play, it appears that Stephen Hill was still in that, video talking about the game. Now, if you actually go back to the DC Fandom event, the very first time that we got to see this game's announcement and gameplay, I strongly believe that Stephen Hill seemed to have been passionate about the project overall. I think they had probably reached the place in the game where there were some markers that, you could tell that he was happy with the work the team had done. I don't necessarily think that it was all just, him, slaving through making this game, even if he didn't want to make it. Now, he's a British man. I could not read his emotions or read if there was anything, negative or if there was anything overly positive. I just made a jab at British people. My bad. I mean, British people sometimes will say stuff on TV shows. So it's a perception you guys gave us on TV. So it's your fault. Anyways, he seemed to be a little passionate about the project. So I'm wondering if at that point there were aspects of the game that, he really wanted to highlight and would have loved to see come into fruition, but did not necessarily happen somewhere mid-production. If you think about it, the game had probably maybe 2 more years of development in play. The game was supposed to come out in 2022 or something along the lines of that, or 2021 or whatnot. So probably had a year or 2 still left, but it got delayed and it got pushed. I think those delays and the push probably indicate that something was probably either being changed or decided upon, the direction of where things could go. And at the end of the day, we're getting the live service version of this game. So what would a single player version of this game have looked like? Number one, I think it would have had a lot of, in terms of game mechanics, basically in terms of aesthetics, in terms of story, in terms of progression. I think it's going to have Rocksteady, DNA through and through. In terms of gameplay, on the other hand, I think what would have probably been likely was to see the Suicide Squad members actually be hands-on in regard to how they actually approach combat and deal with minions from not only Brainiac, but from also the different Suicide Squad members. This is what I think one should have looked like. So when I say that, I mean, imagine a world where you had these different Justice League members and they were in charge of different factions of bad guys, just like you had in the Arkham games. That strategy had some of the bad guys working for, the Two-Face, gang. You had some working for Scarecrow and some working for the Arkham Knight. You could see the differences in the different bad guys. You could see the street thugs and so on and so forth. You've seen them through the Arkham games. What if, after Brainiac had possessed all of the different Justice League members, each and every one of them had a gang of bad guys that they actually ran, and each bad guy, or each, enemy group had different tiers of enemies that had very unique, specific abilities to them that the Suicide Squad members had to engage. I noticed that in the gameplay for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, a lot of the enemy NPCs, they seem to be somewhat the same. They're all Brainiac mind, controlled, minions of some kind. I think that if this game had a single player emphasis, we would have had to see something of much more of a deeper difference. Now, there might be more enemy types that we don't know about, so we're yet to see. But I'm just saying that in my mind, this is probably what would have opened the door for a lot more fleshing out in terms of, enemy classes, enemy behavior, and so on and so forth. One game that really did a good job in that category, because it is an RPG, as much as people would probably like to not say much about that, was Gotham Knights. Gotham Knights really did put you in a position where you played against different, enemy categories and different enemy types. And Gotham Knights is a single player and a co-op game. So it has its single player aspect of the game actually fleshed out in regard to how it's set up, your main character, and set up all the different factions. You have the Freaks, you have the League of Assassins. You have the, I forgot the other names of the bad guys that work with Mr. Freeze, but at least you had 4 factions that you could actually deal with, and they all had their different attributes to them. So I think that's probably what we would have seen in a Suicide Squad iteration as a single player game in regard to, say, gameplay mechanics and, enemy types and so on and so forth. But in regard to combat, I'm curious as to what people would think, combat would look like, because, if you think about it, combat in the Arkham games are full-blown melee. But the Suicide Squad members, depends on who you look at, they are, in a sense, quite interesting. Harley uses, all kinds of stuff, whatever she can get her hands on. So I think she would have made a solid melee character. In fact, she already is a melee character established in the Arkham universe. In Arkham Knight, you can play as Harley Quinn. You can play combat maps with, the character. You can do all kinds of fun stuff. So that already should have naturally flown. And then, characters like Boomerang, King Shark, and so on and so forth, would have also benefited from that. Now, when you look at, say, Deadshot, he's the one that's actually a little interesting because, with him, he's more of a projectile character, ballistics, all of that stuff, very good marksman and all the others. But he's also had an iteration in a video game where he plays melee and projectile at the same time, which is Injustice 2. Now, I'm not saying they should go take Injustice 2's, formula from their book, but it is not impossible nor out of the question to say you have a Deathstroke that can actually, use anything other than guns. If you get what I mean. So I think this single player iteration would have had to feature these different aspects, and it would have been really a convincing proposition. But I'm just here dreaming, talking about another possibility that could have been the outcome if, say, I think Rocksteady's creators were given the creative freedom, or at least allowed to express the creative freedom as much as possible. But it doesn't seem that that's the case, and it seems like whoever is in charge is just it's just short bent on making sure that they actually have their vision, come through. But I think that person is probably playing games. At this time, they have Monolith probably carrying them in NRS, but within the Warner Brothers video games lines, yes, they have Hogwarts Legacy, but imagine how much more this could have been a big deal, because Hogwarts Legacy proves that the single player paradigm is actually quite strong. It really does. The game sold a lot of copies. So I think that person probably has a miss with this game, because they already have avenues to make the, live service games. Mortal Kombat is already one of those, and it's a heavy seller. No problem with that. So I think that person needs to reevaluate how they handled all of this. And I don't know if Stephen Hill is probably going to be in a position to want to jump out there and do some more work independently. I don't think he's going to look for work. I think, if he wants to actually find something to do in the industry, I think he will be happily welcome in a lot of places. But he might be in a position where he has a window where he's not allowed to, or not allowed. Maybe he signed up and took a package where he can't go work for a competitor for a while or whatnot. But we'll see how that plays out. And I'm sure if Stephen Hill gets back into the game, we're going to know and we're going to be following. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. I know this is a very interesting topic, and I wanted to go ahead and put out, just my thoughts on the matter. Thanks so much. I appreciate you guys, and peace out.